And welcome back to 12 Steps to Poker Heaven. I'm Carmel Thomas, and with me is the poker expert, Mr. Grub Smith.
Thank you, Carmel.
You're very welcome. Now, in part one, we talked about the mistakes people make at the poker table.
Yes, and it's not just beginners who make these mistakes, but you've got to watch out for them, certainly when you start your poker career. They tend to be physical tells, giving off information by looking excited or looking sad, betting too often, seeing too many hands and getting yourself into trouble.
Absolutely. Let's move on to step 6.
Bluffing is absolutely crucial to successful poker. You want to keep your opponents off the scent. Poker is a game of information, and it's vital that you keep everyone else at the table guessing.
But what if you can't bluff? What if you're a beginner and you find yourself twitching or giving off a tell every time you try?
Well, then you are in trouble. You have to learn to master those physical tells. It's important to have a bit of bluff in your game. If you only ever play good cards, after a while people are going to pick up on that and you're not going to get paid off. As soon as you bet, everyone will go, well, he's got aces again, I'm going to fold. Then again, you don't want to bluff too crazily or else people will call you every time, and similarly you will lose a lot of money. The trick is to get the mix about right, to bluff just enough to keep people guessing. And you mustn't do it in a pattern. You mustn't bluff every third hand, you mustn't bluff every fifth hand, because again, people will begin to read your pattern. You've got to mix it up and keep people on their toes so they're always nervous of going into a hand against you.
And what are the different types of bluffing?
Well, there are essentially two different types of bluff you're going to make. That's the pure bluff and the semi-bluff. Now, the pure bluff is what it sounds like. You're putting a lot of chips in the middle and you've got absolutely nothing. You're just hoping to force people out with the strength of your bet. The semi-bluff is a slightly more subtle beast. You suspect that somebody might have a higher card than you, but you've got a straight draw or you've got middle pair, and you're putting chips out there hoping that even if they call, you've got a chance of drawing out against them. So you probably wouldn't bet quite so big with a semi-bluff, but then again, you've got a bit more insurance.
Now, Grub, throughout this series, you've always stated the importance of position. How does position affect when you should or shouldn't bluff?
Well, it is important. Let's take the semi-bluff first. Now, a semi-bluff you want to make in early or middle position, because if it's checked round to you, and you're quite near the button or you're on the button, there's really no point making a semi-bluff because you can see a free card. If you did try a semi-bluff, it might be that somebody was check-raising against you and they're going to come over the top and then you're going to have to fold. So if you can see a card for nothing, well, that obviously makes sense to anybody, doesn't it? Sale prices, why not? We'll check it and you might make that straight or that elusive flush you've been chasing. A pure bluff, oddly enough, you should make in early position. You don't want to let somebody else check to you and then you have a bet, because they may be check raising again, or they may think, well, I've shown weakness, of course he's going to bet, in which case I'll just see him. So if you get the chance to act first with a pure bluff, show strength. You don't have to go all in, but put in a nice chunky bet, a third of the pot, half the pot, and the odds are that if they haven't been betting, that they haven't actually hit the board, so you can get away with it. The danger of pushing in a bluff once somebody has already bet is that they may be pot committed, or they may have been making a little value bet hoping that you're going to do exactly that. So bluffing, it's very easy to be a pirate and say, oh, I'm going to bluff all the time and I don't care. But there are a lot of subtle players out there, so you have to be slightly careful. Protect your downside. Only bluff if you think you've got a good chance of chasing the opposition away.
Let's have a look at a few examples.
This is the Fast and Furious challenge, and it does what it says on the tin. The players only have 30 seconds to make their decision. Action round to Richard Herbert on the button, and he's picked up a suited big slick, a very powerful hand. He raises it to 300. That will send a message out. I've got a good hand, but he's called pretty quickly by Sandals in the small blind with only a King-7 offsuit, so that really is a fishing hand. He wants to stick a hook in the water and see if he can catch anything. Well, he catches a beady look from Richard Herbert, but nothing from the flop. Herbert, on the other hand, has made the nut flush draw. 2 spades in his hand, 2 on the board. Sandals counting out some chips, but deciding to check.
Check.
What does Richard interpret that as? Well, he puts in 600 to find out where he is. Now Sandals reaches once again for his chips. Something about that bet from Richard he didn't like. It was too quick. He thinks it's a little bit hinky.
18.
And he bumps it up to 1,800.
18.
Well, Richard Herbert, I'm afraid, rabbit in headlights time. He had the nut flush draw. He was ahead with his ace-king. And he got out of the way like there was a truck coming. And that is the power of the check raise.
Well,
he interpreted that as being a very powerful hand, probably trips or two pairs.
Action seat 4.
This is the World Speed Poker Open, three-handed. And on the button and first to act is Kamara.
Pass.
He doesn't like his cards. Judges in the small blind.
Call.
Just limping in with the 9-10. And John Cabage, experienced
No raise.
professional, is sensible enough to say, I'll see a flop with my 8-2. He'll want to hit this one or get out. And there is an 8 straight away.
8 of clubs.
And the ace and the
King
king
of
won't
hearts,
really frighten him
ace
because
of
he'll think
spades.
judges would have raised pre-flop if he'd had an
Check.
ace or a king. But he
Check.
decides to check it. The turn card
Queen of
is a
spades.
queen.
Seat 1. 10,000.
Is that a semi-bluff?
Yes, that is a semi-bluff. He's got the 9 and
Oh.
10, so a jack would give him a straight. But Cabage very quickly calls.
6 of hearts.
He might have interpreted that as a semi-bluff. Very experienced player. He knows that if he had an ace, king or queen, he probably would have bet pre-flop. Jack 10, and again, a very good raising hand, three-handed. He'd probably fancy his 8 is good here.
Check.
He'll certainly love the delay from
Check.
judges.
And to close.
Judges checks and Cabage checks as well. Turns over his 8 deuce. Seems he can barely stand to look at the board, but he's going to be very happy when he does because he made a perfectly correct read. He saw the semi-bluff, realised the 6 on the end hadn't helped his opponent, and was very happy to take down the chips.
He's actually from kind of up north.
We are five-handed now at the British Poker Open 2005. Two most experienced players on the table, Gary Jones and John Shipley, both regular attendees at the World Series main event.
Pass.
And Shipley decides to throw his cards away.
Pass.
Stancer does the same, and we're around to the choir boy, Gary Jones, who comes in. And it is round to
No raise.
Dumovic, who's picked up a Jack 8 offsuit. And he says, we'll see a flop. So it's Jones against Dumovic.
Ace, king, 3. Check. Check.
And nothing there for either player. They both missed it by a mile.
Take your time. I've got nowhere to go.
They're both going to see the turn, and now they've both picked up a straight draw. Gary Jones very quickly bets 9,000.
9,000.
Adam Dumovic giving this due thought and consideration. He may be delaying it, hoping to get some information from Gary.
If you want to tell me what you've got, I'll tell you
Help
whether
me
it's a
out.
good call or not. Yeah.
Well, he bet very quickly there. Once Gary started chirping, he thought, well, that's a sign of
Well,
nerves. A steady player who knows his hand is made isn't going to talk. He's just going to let you get on with it and dig your own grave. Gary, I'm afraid, got a bit impatient there.
Ace.
So now it's, well, really, the first one to bet wins.
Check.
Check.
And it's Adam Dumovic who is counting out chips.
16,000.
And how does Gary call?
Does it work the other way, though? Can I tell you what I've got and you can tell me whether I should call?
It's Adam who picked up information from Gary. When he was delaying on the turn, wondering whether to call or not, he just let Gary stew in his own juices, and Gary couldn't resist it. Gary had to start talking to him. And that, again, is a release of tension. Gary's wondering what's going to happen. If he had a made hand, he would have sat there, quiet as a mouse, and given Adam as long as he wanted to make a mistake. As soon as Gary spoke, you'll notice Adam bet immediately.
So, Grub, what are your thoughts on showing bluffs?
Occasionally, it's not a bad idea. If you think you're going to put a player on tilt by showing that you've deceived him and enrage him and make him play badly, then that's a red rag to a bull, and that's a good thing to do. Another way that you can take advantage of your bluffing is table image. There's a famous English player, Jackarama, who wears comical hats, and he will generally play one of the first hands in a game very, very loosely. He'll make terrible calls with terrible cards, and he'll show that he was bluffing. So everyone will think, God, I've seen this guy on the TV and I've just seen what he's done. He's a crazy maniac. But from that moment on, he then adjusts his game and plays incredibly tightly, so that when he bets, people think he's on the come, they call, and he rakes in the money. And that's why he does pretty well as a player. So if you are going to show a bluff, make sure that you realise everybody now thinks you're bluffing. So you can't really bluff again. You then have to become a pretty solid player.
Thank you for watching. Join us next time when we'll be looking at how to read hands and also the importance of heads-up play. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.